Hello and welcome to the lecture on secure data disposal. So the basic idea that we're going to discuss in this lecture is data remnants. So data remnants is when you have data that still remains on these devices even after you've attempted to delete it or format these devices. Now we often sell off hard disk drives or discard them or dispose of them, and we consider that once we have deleted or formatted data it's no longer there. However, using advanced forensic tools, it's very much possible to discover tons of information from your hard disks, and there are certain things that you should keep in mind before selling off or disposing these kind of devices. We're also going to share some tips that you can steps that you can follow in order to make sure that there is minimal probability of your personal or confidential data being recovered. Now there are four different aspects that we are going to discuss. The first is related to hard disks. Now hard disks contain a wealth of sensitive information, and if you don't take appropriate sanitization steps, then people are able to recover tons of information using advanced forensic tools. Cell phones are also a very popular commodity which people often buy and sell. And they're particularly important because they contain personal pictures, videos, personal contacts, as well as chat histories. And there have been numerous incidents in which people were able to recover these kinds of information from used cell phones that they bought. Now, simply crumpling up documents or tearing them and throwing them in the waste basket is often not enough. So there are certain things that you can do. For instance, you can shred the document before discarding them. However, even if you have shredded a document but you are discarding all of those fragments at one place, it can still pose certain dangers because there have been instances in which people are able to, sort of put back all those shreds and recover the original document. Flash drives are something which we often use, to move data, copy data from one system to another. And then, we just forget about what do they contain and they're just lying around until we lose them one day without even realizing what do they contain. So data remnants is a serious issue. And, whenever you want to dispose of or sell off these type of personal assets or storage devices, there are certain precautions that you should definitely take. Now, technically speaking, data remnants is the concept that there is residual data on these devices even after you've attempted to remove it. Now, simply deleting files or even formatting often does not completely remove the data. Let's take the example of a hard disk, right? Now, let's say this is a hard disk drive, and the way hard disk drives store data is that they have these special sort of lookup tables called file allocation tables or file tables simply. And the way that they store data is that whenever you have a file, for example, you have a movie, this table is going to note down its name, its type, for example, and it's also going to note down at which cluster and which sectors within those clusters is this file located. And another thing which this table does is that it marks these clusters and sectors as being unavailable and as being occupied. Obviously, you can have other types of files as well. Now, when you go ahead and delete these files or even do a quick format, it doesn't actually delete these files. The only thing it does is that the operating system goes in this file allocation table and marks these locations as available without actually deleting these files from the hard disk. Now, the problem is that, from the point of view of a user, these files are gone because the file allocation table says these sectors are available, and if you do a lookup of these files, these are not available. However, in reality, these files are very much present on the hard disk drive, and using advanced forensic tools, it's very easy to recover these. So for example, if you store a new file at this location, for example, you may have a file which sort of overlaps with some of these locations, but some part of this movie or documents or information may still be there, which is actually pretty easy to recover. Now, Computing Magazine recovered around 22,000 deleted files, so-called deleted files from 8 computers which it bought from eBay. Now, eBay is a popular website on which people often sell used hard disks, laptops, computers. And the process is that all of this data is wiped before selling them off. However, in this instance, Computing Magazine was able to use some forensic tools and they recovered 22,000 deleted files. And there have been so many other cases in which, organizations or people were able to use these tools. They were able to recover things like credit card information, medical histories, and all kinds of information. So just thinking that, if you delete a file or do a quick format of the hard disk and that's good, actually that's not good enough. Now, let's see what you can do. What are some of the precautions that you can take to make sure that your data is properly sanitized and there's no issue of data remnants? Now, ultimately, the best way, which provides 100% guarantee, is to physically destroy the hard disk through shredding, incineration, or maybe even drilling holes in them. Now, I understand as an end user, this is often not feasible for all of us. But rest assured that companies who are very serious about these kind of issues, about data remnants, who are conscious of about the security and privacy of their data, they do have built-in processes to make sure that any of the hard disks that they want to discard or maybe reuse, they are either destroyed or they undergo certain intensive cleaning process. Now, obviously, if physically destroying the hard disk is not feasible, then you can use at least professional tools like DBAN or HDD low level formatting. Now, these tools do a deeper formatting and they fill the hard disks with zeros and ones, and so they reduce the probability of data being recovered. Another very interesting technique which you can use is to perform multiple iterations of formatting and then filling the hard disk with junk data. So the basic idea is you go ahead and you format your hard disk, then you fill it with, for example, you have a big movie file and you copy it again and again, and you fill the hard disk and you do the formatting again, and then you repeat the process. Now, this is going to reduce the probability of data recovery down the road. However, please, understand that it's just a game of probability. You're reducing the probability that, someone would be able to recover your data. Ultimately, if you want 100% guarantee, the only way is to physically destroy the hard disk. So, just to keep in mind, whenever you have these types of assets or, hard disk drives, laptops, cell phones, before you go ahead and just wipe them and format them and discard them in, dumpsters or sell them off, there are these kind of issues which you should definitely keep in mind.